Hey everybody, welcome back to Race of History. Today we're going to get into Sabaton History's episode over their song The Last Stand on the 1527 sack of Rome. So let's get into it.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Per Lionheart, and I'm here to talk about the Crusades.
He might be my favorite member of Sabaton. I don't know, every time I see him, he makes me smile.
They were so exciting times, and I can't imagine the Last Stand in the Crusader times. It was like so damn cool to be a Crusader at that time. Crusades, they are the most important thing in Sabaton life. Crusaders, Crusades, all of that Crusades.
Crusades.
And more Crusades. We're gonna do more Crusades.
Crusades. Hey, did you know that the Knights of the Templar Order might have founded Switzerland? When Pope Clement V declared in the early 1300s that all Templar knights were heretics and should be killed, many of them fled France, taking their huge treasury with them. The Templars, shrewd bankers, may have brought their treasure and their military expertise to a loose confederation of poor farmers just over the French border. Well, okay, that may actually be just a myth. But what if it was true, right? I mean, look at the Swiss flag. Quite similar to the Templars' cross if you swap the colors, right?
It's, in this time period, in general, it's hard to get a feel for what is truth and what is being written down as, legend or myth. And because it is such a staple story of that time period, it comes across as, well, this is just what it is or how it happened or whatever. There's a very interesting quote at the start of a book. I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's about ancient history, though. I want to say the book, the historian's book, is actually over the Greco-Persian Wars. But the quote he has at the beginning is something along the lines of, we have to believe ancient history even if it's not true. And the reasoning for that is we don't have anything else to go off of. And the kind of overall viewpoint is that overall we're getting a picture. The specifics may not be right, or there may be things thrown in that were, part of culture or just a thought process of the time or whatever, but that the general overarching view of what is happening is the true one.
Right? Just saying. Anyhow, I will get back to factual history now. Over 200 years later, too. Rome, November 1523. The whole Vatican seemed like one big building site, trying to reinvent itself with classical palaces and basilicas. The city was quite cosmopolitan, where pilgrims and travelers mingled with people from all over Europe. But the mood just now was tense. Hushed voices spoke of the ongoing deadlock within the conclave of cardinals, trying to choose a new pope. Busy feet shuffled under the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo's new ceiling frescoes barely got any attention, so focused was everyone on the decision at hand. Several seemingly suitable cardinals were proposed, but none could win, and it looked like it would all come down to the two candidates supported by the two great powers in the European world. Okay. For centuries, Italy and the Vatican had been the real-life chessboard for the ambitions of kings. By now, a new crisis was developing between Francis I of France and Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Charles was pretty much the most powerful ruler in Europe since the days of Charlemagne 700 years earlier.
Yeah, so this is just the way that the church worked for a really long time. And it was not a one-sided affair where the states around the church would use it to, push their leaders further into power. The church was often pulling these strings and levers of power. So it was depending on the time period, depending on the pope, depending on the states that are in power, it's very much a back and forth sort of two-sided relationship on who's using who here. But it was very common for the church to be a major geopolitical player in this part of the world, right? Or I guess in the bulk of the world at this time. Charles, being the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, is going to get a little bit upset. He doesn't like France. Pope Clement is trying to make sure that the church stays stable no matter what happens between France and the Holy Roman Empire. And so that's what he's going to do. He has the backing of Charles, and so he's going to try to not get the backing of, but come to an arrangement with Francis so that no matter who wins, the church is on stable footing, right? Charles doesn't like that, and being who he is, he's going to go down there and bitch slap Clement after giving him his vote of approval and then seeing him kind of fraternizing with the enemy. He's going to get upset about it.
And that certainly went to his head. He saw himself not only as divinely appointed ruler, but as the one and only Christian ruler of Europe, whose duty it was to dominate France and then unite Christendom under his banner. Giulio de' Medici was the papal candidate Charles supported. And on November 16th, he was elected and became Pope Clement VII. Everything seemed perfect. But as it would soon turn out, Clement VII's papacy would actually be one of the worst in history. And this is really saying something. But it began by Clement trying to be a good pope. Pope Leo X, Clement's predecessor, had been very popular in the Italian peninsula. And for a
very popular. He is one of the more well-known debaucherous popes. He lives more on the debaucherous side of religion. And so, yeah, if you are living there, if you're working with him, like, life's a party, right? That's very popular.
Simple reason. He behaved less like a pope and more like an old Roman emperor. He was a lavish spender and a playboy who threw wild parties and extravagant banquets. Unlike Leo, Clement wanted to reign with scholars and clerics, with fasts and actual religious obligations. Surprisingly, this made him deeply unpopular with the clergy in Rome. Now this was a problem, but he still had the emperor on his side, right? I mean, all he had to do was not agitate his royal benefactor, which he promptly did. Charles was fighting a war against France in northern Italy, and rumors reached his ears that Clement had been secretly in contact with the cities of Venice and Milan to form a defensive pact with Rome in case things went bad for the Holy Roman Empire. Charles was a bit irritated by that.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten that happened. That had totally skipped my mind. I can't remember exactly how Charles felt about that. I'm sure they're about to say, but that seems a little more, understandable. Like, France is the one that Charles, wants to bring to heel. And so I feel like it's okay until you start messing around with France, and then that's going to be where the problem is.
Backdoor dealing, but okay, fair enough, plans for the future, right? Okay, he understood.
Yeah.
But when secret peace negotiations between Clement and France were suddenly not so secret anymore, Charles was furious. This was outright treason. Fuming with anger, he even proclaimed that this Martin Luther guy in all the news actually might have had a point with his hatred for the papacy. Remember, we are right at the beginning of the Reformation, and Luther had only been condemned as an outlaw by Charles 2 years ago. Okay, after the decisive Battle of Pavia in 1525, where the French received a complete mauling by the Imperial forces, with Francis even being captured, Charles gave his commander in Italy,
Yeah, so France is the big problem for Charles, right? They go out and beat the brakes off of France, and then as soon as that's over, he's like, all right, now time to deal with this thorn in my side in Rome.
Constable Bourbon another task. With 5,000 Spanish troops, he should go south and have a little chat with the Pope. But Georg von Frundsberg, the famous German military commander, would rather see Clement hanged for his treachery, and he himself raised over 10,000 German Landsknechte out of his own pocket. And while the Spaniards were relatively disciplined, the Landsknechte were emphatically not. Soldiers for hire, loyal only to their pay, and many won over by Martin Luther's words, they were all too eager to get their hands on the wealth of the Catholic Church.
In the heart of the Holy See, in the home of Christianity, the seat of power is in danger. There's a hoe of 1,000 souls, they've been abandoned by the lords. The fall from grace will pave their path to the nation.
In early 1527, Bourbon's 5,000 Spanish and Frundsberg's 10,000 Germans linked up with other mercenaries eager for loot. But then Frundsberg suffered a stroke and returned north. Now Bourbon, stranded in Italy and trying to control both companies for which he didn't really have the money, was left with only one option: move swiftly forward and loot Rome. So by May the 5th, around 20,000 Imperials were knocking on Rome's front door, the Spirito Gate. Bourbon himself, wearing a bright white cloak over his armor, ordered his troops to build ladders and scale the walls. But they were fired upon by arquebusiers and light artillery and took heavy losses. See, fortified cities could not be easily stormed at the time, not without heavy artillery, and Bourbon's army had none. And while...
Yeah, that's the whole name of the game in this time period, right? The whole reason where, you know, depending on where you are in the world, a lot of times they'll have cities that are built up into strongholds. They'll have big walls, they'll have a citadel, and then the surrounding area, countryside, if a threat comes, they'll all kind of conglomerate at the city inside the walls, right? And the whole thought process was, you can defend it if it's walled off, because there is no, it's not like they can, you know, parachute guys in there. They have to have siege weapons to either scale the walls, knock the walls down, knock the gate down. There has to be something that they can do in order to get in. And so, yeah, the whole name of the game at this time period and long before this time period is who can come up with the best siege equipment, who can have the sturdiest foundation for walls and you know, the build of their city. Can you have some sort of defensive works against like a natural obstacle, like you know, up against a mountain or river or something like that. And it's kind of like this chess match between the invaders and then the people that are trying to hold on to their city. But without siege equipment, you're in for a rough go. It can be done, but there are going to be heavy losses. I mean, really heavy losses for this time period.
While the garrison of Rome defended its walls, Pope Clement could still rely on the elite soldiers of the Italian Black Bands and his personal protectors, the 189-man-strong Swiss Guard. Swiss mercenaries were extraordinarily good soldiers and highly valued all across Europe. But while the defenders were busy pouring boiling liquid onto the massive attackers, a dense fog suddenly fell. It became so thick that the men could barely see each other. And the defenders on the walls were firing blindly. Realizing his chance, Bourbon ran forward, holding one of the ladders himself and urging his troops onward. But he was hit and killed instantly. News of his death spread rapidly, and the initial confusion in the ranks of the attackers turned into a lust for revenge for killing their leader and, more importantly, their paymaster. The Imperials surged forward, and their numbers overwhelmed the defenders. With the gates then thrown open for the rest of the Imperials, the defense of Rome collapsed. The invaders swarmed over the city, and with Bourbon dead, there was no authority to even try to restrain them, if that was even possible by this point. The Black Bands were routed, while the Swiss Guard gathered at the obelisk in front of St. Peter's, readying themselves for a last stand near the Teutonic Cemetery. It was their duty to fight and die for the Pope's safety. And so they did, armed with halberds and swords in their hands, and faith in their hearts, they waited for the final battle on the steps of St. Peter's. Stand firm, therefore, having girded your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, in addition to all, taking up the shield of faith. Not that much is known about the actual fighting. Heavily outnumbered, they stood true to their vows and formed a defensive wall of halberds in front of St. Peter's. In a fight they could not hope to win, the men of the Swiss Guard were gradually overwhelmed and slaughtered. Still, their sacrifice gave the Pope enough time to escape through a secret passage. Accompanied by 42 survivors of the 189, they ran across the Passetto di Borgo up to the Castel Sant'Angelo. More and more of the guard died along the way, fending off the pursuing Imperials. The last few still standing made it into the Castello with the Pope, and then they could fire heavy artillery and falconets into the mass of attackers, preventing the Castello from being overwhelmed. The Pope and those closest to him were safe thanks to the sacrifice of the Swiss Guard.
Then the 189 in the service of heaven, they're protecting the holy line. It was 1527. Give their lives on the steps to heaven. Thy will be done.
But a horrible massacre was unfolding down below as the Imperials, the mercenaries, made their way through the city. No one was spared their wrath, not women, not children, not the clergy, nor the holy sites. Monks and priests were brutally killed. Nuns were raped on sacred altars. People were cut, beaten, and branded, their teeth and nails pulled out for the information about their valuables. Sources speak of molten lead being poured down throats and severed testicles in the streets. Tombs were looted. Holy relics were carried away, often by famous artists and noblemen who now served as porters for the soldiers. From high above, Pope Clement was forced to look upon the destruction that he was unable to prevent. He grew a beard as a sign of mourning. It would take until February 1528 that the last of the barbaric invaders had left Rome. What they left behind was a city in ruins, with dead by the thousands floating in the river. It would take decades for Rome to recover. The city's population was reduced by some 80%, and it is seen by many as the end of the Italian Renaissance. But the sack of Rome affected more than just the city. Afterwards, Clement was no longer able to oppose Charles's ambitions, and a religious power shift away from the Pope and toward the Emperor had lasting consequences for all of Europe. For example, the Pope, at Charles' direction, refused to annul the marriage of Charles' aunt, Catherine of Aragon, to England's Henry VIII, which kicked off the English Reformation. The split in continental Europe between Protestant and Catholic was made permanent by the sack, and Martin Luther even pointed out, Christ reigns in such a way that the emperor who persecutes Luther for the Pope is forced to destroy the Pope for Luther. And while that's a bit general, the power of the papacy was diminished afterwards, even as the Inquisition grew under Charles's son, Philip II. The rift between Catholic and Protestant would culminate in the 30 Years' War, about which Sabaton wrote several songs on the Carolus Rex album. And as for their heroic fighting of the...
Oh my gosh, I have got to go listen to some of those songs. This is such a great, interesting time period where so much is happening. You know, we talk a lot about the impact on the future that World War I had. This is a time period where everything is shifting so quickly that have huge lasting impact on what the future of Europe is going to look like.
Swiss Guard. It would go down in history as one of the great last stands, and left them with the everlasting gratitude of the papacy. And to this day, the Swiss Guard, still in their traditional garb nearly 500 years later, serves as the honor guard of the Pope.
For the grace, for the might of our Lord, for the home of the holy, for the faith, for the way of the sword, give their lives so boldly. For the grace, for the might of our Lord, in the name of His glory, for the faith, for the way of the sword, come and tell the story again.
So I know a bunch of people are going to be wondering why we started this episode with crusades, but it's not about the crusades.
No, it's a meme. It became a meme. I guess somebody misunderstood the song, or too many people started misunderstanding the song. So our lovely Sabaton fans, instead of bashing them and, trolling them on the internet, made memes about them instead.
Now, do you have a whole bunch of memes of yours?
Yeah, there's been a few over the years. I think this one and, the Winged Hussars.
Oh, yeah, but that's see, I knew that one. I didn't know this one, though. So.
It's even sometimes going only in text form. You don't even need a picture. Sometimes you are on Reddit reading about a totally different topic, and then somebody just writes, and then the Winged Hussars are right.
Yeah, we've seen that in our comments a lot over the last 8 months or so. We've been doing this show, or more than that now. I've been fortunate enough to have a couple of memes done about me. More with the Great War because it was longer than World War II one. And my favorite one, and we're going to put a picture of it in here. We were at the Tank Museum Bovington, and David Willey, the director of the Tank Museum there, very eloquent guy, knows his stuff, popular, he's really good camera. We were doing interviews and stuff, and somebody got this photo of it, and they put this. But and what about the actual song itself, Beyond the Memes?
Beyond the Memes was actually the first song written with Chris, one of the most popular from that album. Really nice vibe to it. I don't know what it is. It's
a great song. Like, the subject is great, and the lyrics that they, like, the way that they framed the event was done really well. But then the music of it is awesome. So I feel like that's why it musically is very good.
Really Sabaton. If you listen to it, you don't even have to wait for the vocals to start. You will know it's a Sabaton song only from.
You mean from this part right here?
Yes, that's the one I mean.
That's the part you mean, yeah. I think you pretty much got that. So, could you say, I mean, not would you want to say, but could you say, if you had to say, could you pick a single 10-second thing of a Sabaton song and say, that's us, and that defines us? Or
yes,
is that too much?
I can. No, I can, but it's not going to be this song. It's going to be Primo Victoria.
Okay, okay.
Through the gates of hell as we make our way to heaven, through the Nazi lines, and then the choir, Primo Victoria.
We can hear that too. See, now you got, man, they get a bonus today. They get all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You kid, we're starting to spoil you guys.
Yeah, we're generous guys.
It's not too long. It's only a couple months away before this channel will be a year old.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I know. We started, the first episode came out February 7th.
It feels much shorter than that, I can tell you.
Yeah, but we've done dozens of episodes, and we've got dozens more. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do one of every Sabaton song.
I would like that very much. And if you guys have anything special you'd like to see for our 1-year anniversary when it comes, we may as well start talking about that now.
They're going to start asking for bloopers, you know that.
Oh, well, we don't have any bloopers, do we?
No, we deleted all, trust me.
Deleted all? Oh, damn. Dude, my life is a blooper. Okay, no, we do have some great bloopers. I mean, none that involve him. They only involve Per.
Exactly.
Actually, that'd be funny if we only released Per bloopers as our 1-year thing. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Per. Oh, that'd be brilliant. Okay, well, as long as we're getting off topic, I suppose that is it for today for Sabaton History, yes?
It is, I think, yes.
All right, well, we'll see you next time. Rock and roll.
All right, that's it for this week. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you can help us out here now. So, we want to keep this going. It's a lot of fun to do, but it takes some doing. So you need to click on notifications, you got to subscribe, and if you can, we would love it if you would become a Patreon and help us out. So, hopefully, until we meet again next week.
Their stuff is so good. I don't know, the fact that they do history episodes for the song that they do. I've talked about this before, about how I just love the idea of putting out something in a subject that people find boring, but through fast-paced, good music. It's such a cool way to pull, casual history people into the fold. And even people like me who love history, we just did the Soldier of Heaven song. I went on a deep dive on the White Friday, avalanche and all that. So it's just so cool what they do. But all right, that was the history version of For the Last Stand, the 1527 sack of Rome. Like, comment, subscribe. I will have the second part of the D-Day series video from Extra History out this afternoon. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys then.